This is part one of the C# version of the White Belt Kata. I have the files open here. We're going to start off with the README file. I want to talk about what we're going to do in this video. This is a more drawn out video. There's a shortened version of this where I don't explain everything and it just runs through the different steps. Let me open up the README file really fast, and I just have it open in Visual Studio Code. So our goal is to solve the white belt or solve the prime number problem using our White Belt Kata. So the White Belt Kata is the 10 steps that I'm teaching you. The prime number problem is we want to find the prime numbers up to and including 100. So this is part one. What we're going to do here in our 10 steps are the first two steps here. So we're going to create a shell application in C#.net, and then we're going to create a test project or folder, also C# and .net. The remaining steps are going to be in the part two video, and I may break that out into two different videos. So this is just the first two steps. These first two steps are covered in every language in these new project files. So what we're really going to do today in this video is we're going to cover the new project C#.md file. What we're going to do, and I'm going to break down the way we're going to approach this, and then we're going to walk through it step by step. We're effectively just running through this top section. Everything else below it is supporting one of these steps here in the first section here. We're going to start off by opening Visual Studio, not Visual Studio Code. This is Visual Studio, the purple icon. And we'll create a new project. We're going to choose our main project type as the executable project. There are several different types that we could choose. I could do it as a console application, I could do it as a web app or a web service, or I could do it as a rich client application. And in fact, I encourage you to explore and try all of these. However, today I'm just going to use the console application. Most students choose that for their test, and that is sufficient. All I want to do is see that you know how to create an application. So that'll be step two, is we're going to create the console application. When we get to step two, we're going to go down to this section. If for step two you wanted a web application, you would instead go to this section. So these sections support the steps above. Once we get through this console application section, we'll go down to step three. We're going to add a test project. We're going to skip down, and that is this section down here. So in step three, we're going to run through these steps to execute everything to create that test project. Then step four, we are, not just optionally, we're going to do it. I do recommend it. We're going to add a class library, and this will be this section here. So we're just using these sections below to basically run through. And then finally, we're going to add project references, and that is this last section down here. So that's the steps we're going to do as we run through this. So let's go ahead and kick it off. I'm going to keep the Visual Studio Code open in the background so we can see what's going on. And let me zoom in a little bit. So we're going to be focused, a little too much. We're going to be focused first on the overall. So we're going to start off by opening Visual Studio. So let me just open that up. And this is going to open up this window here. Yours is going to look a little different because you don't have the same solutions open that I have. We're going to create a new project. So that is over here on the right in Visual Studio 2026. If you're using Visual Studio 2022, it may look different. If by the time of this recording, you're using Visual Studio, I don't know, 2029 or 2030, it may look a little bit different again. But we're going to create a new project. That's this button right up here. Now we're on to step two. We want to choose the project executable, the project type for our executable. I'm going to do a console application. So let me scroll this down a little bit so we can see we're now running through these steps. So starting off, choose console app. Now, if it's in the left, you can go ahead and choose that. These are project templates you've recently created. If it's not there, that's fine. We'll just search for it. Type console, and it's going to filter down your list. If you have not already done so, I do recommend changing your language filter to C#. That way you don't accidentally click Visual Basic or F# or one of the other languages I don't teach. This will make sure that if you get the console application, it is a C# version of it. The icon shows C#. The tag down here shows C#. That is the correct version. There is a console app for .NET, the .NET framework. That is an older version. We don't want that one. We want this one. So we're going to choose console app. On the project name, we're going to rename it to just console app. So just get rid of the one. That's easy enough. For the location, we're going to choose a folder where we want to put it. You could keep it there by default if you want. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the folder where I have these files, the README and everything. I'm going to grab the path from here. To do that in Windows Explorer, I'm just going to click to the right of the space up here. So here's the node for the breadcrumbs. Go to the right of that in this little open space. We're going to click that, copy that, and I'm just going to paste that into my location. Easy enough. For the All right, so that's the location. For the solution name, we want to enter a short but descriptive name. So you could call this prime number kata. You could call it white belt kata. You could add spaces. You don't have to add spaces. You could make it all one word. Same thing, prime number kata. Whatever you want to do. This is just a name that is going to be in on your hard drive that'll be easy to recognize. You may even, if you're doing this several times, you may want to include the date in there. So we could say, so I'm doing this as of April 23rd, so I might do dash 2026-04-23. So sortable date format, year, month, day. You don't need a dash. You could do a space. You could do no dash. It's totally up to you. The solution name is not very particular. It just needs to be something you can easily recognize. So go ahead and choose whatever name you want. I'll just do, I'll call this White Belt Kata, not white number kata, white belt kata. And I'll just put the date, dash 2026-04-23. If you're going to do it multiple times today, maybe it's 24-23A. And then the second time is B. Totally up to you. However you want to name it. Again, this is for you. Everything else is really about the code, but this particular solution name can be whatever you want it to be. We'll click next. On the next screen, we just want to make sure that the latest version of the framework is selected. Mine is 10. I've got multiple here, and 10 is probably the one you're using right now. If this is a later time, maybe it's a year or two from now, maybe it's .NET 11 or .NET 12. Whatever the latest version is, just make sure you're picking that. We'll leave everything else empty. We're not worried about anything else, and we'll hit Create. Once it opens up, so I'm going to let that do its thing. Once it opens up, we're going to move to step 6 here. And we're going to change the project properties. Let me show you what that looks like. So here inside Visual Studio, I'm going to close program.cs. You can hit Control F4. You can see the shortcut there. You can click on the X, or a fun little shortcut if you want to keep it on the mouse and just kind of move through quickly. You can hover over the tab and click on your mouse wheel. So if you just depress the mouse wheel, that will close an open tab. And that works in most applications. So we're going to close that. We want to open up the console app. So by default, your Solution Explorer is over here on the right. If you don't see the Solution Explorer, you need to go to View, and it's the very top selection, Solution Explorer. Make sure that shows up. We're going to double-click the console app project here. So the solution is up at the top. The project is this node here that says console app. That's what we called it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, first off, I'm going to reformat. So it does spaces instead of tabs, and I prefer spaces. So I'm going to hit Control A to select everything, and then Control K, and then Control F. That will reformat it. Your settings may not do that. You may not have your Visual Studio settings to do anything, but if you select everything, you do Control K, Control F, that just reformats the selection. So it'll make sure that your curly braces are all consistent, spaces versus tabs are consistent, so it'll just reformat everything for you. You don't need to do that. I prefer to do that because, well, I have a little bit of OCD in me, and I like to make sure that everything is buttoned up just nicely. What we're going to do here, and I'm going to zoom in quite a bit so we can see what's going on. We're going to change this nullable enable to disable. We're going to disable nullable types, and then we're going to add a root namespace and an assembly name. So let me switch back over. So these are the settings that we're doing. So let me talk about what we're doing. So nullable, we're going to disable nullable. Nullable is a feature in the .NET framework, and it has to do with nullable reference types. It's a good idea that it was implemented, in my opinion, poorly. And so I don't like nullable. I think it ends up cluttering the code. It doesn't end up really helping where it's supposed to end up helping. It's supposed to help us deal with nulls better. And what ends up happening is it just clutters up code. So I recommend disabling nullable. So we're going to do that here. If you want to keep it enabled, you're welcome to do so. If you like the nullable feature, if you've used it and you understand it, you're welcome to keep nullable enabled. But again, I just don't like it and I don't recommend it. I think it confuses new developers. It starts adding syntax with question marks and exclamation points that just, it doesn't make sense and it's hard to explain. So we're going to disable nullable. Then we're going to add assembly name and root namespace. Assembly name is effectively the name of the file that we're generating. So we want this to be descriptive of what we're doing, but for the console app, we want it to be short enough that the user doesn't have to type a bunch. Because for a console app, they'll have to type this name in. So that's a placeholder here. We'll come back to that. The root namespace is going to be the default namespace for any classes or types that we create as a part of this project. So by default, the root namespace will be your company name. We'll just use Lucent Terry for today. The product or problem space, so we might call this White Belt Kata or prime number Kata or prime numbers, prime number problem, something along those lines. And then in this one, we're going to end with console app, and these are dot separated. So these are the three things we're going to add here. So let's head back. So inside first, we'll just change this to disable. Then the next line, do an open angle bracket. That's the less than sign. And if you start typing root namespace, you could do these in either order, assembly name or root namespace. I'll do the root namespace first. This one again is going to be Lucent Terry dot. Now our problem space, let's call it prime numbers. Again, there's several options. You could call it prime number problem. You could call it prime number generation. You could call it White Belt Kata. You could call it White Belt. There's lots of different things here, but this is basically the main problem space that we're trying to solve. So to me, prime numbers make sense. I'll use that. you have some flexibility on what you do there. And then the last part is going to be console app. So it's the console app namespace and the prime numbers namespace inside the Lucentary namespace. Whatever you choose here, these first two nodes are going to be important. We're going to use these in the other project types we're going to create. Console app is specific to this one, but these we want to be the same in the others. That way everything's consistent across the board. Let's do another new line, and we'll type the assembly name. So again, open angle bracket, it's going to give you an open and a close element. And so we're putting the value between those two tags. This is all XML. So this is going to be the short name of the project. And this is going to be, we want it because it's a console app, we want this to be short. So I'm going to call it prime num calc. That's pretty short. It's short, but it's still descriptive of what we're trying to do. It's a calculator for prime numbers. So prime num calc, what this will do when we compile it down, it will add .exe. We're not going to add the .exe. It does it automatically, but it's going to create a .exe file for this assembly. That basically takes care of the project settings. Let's head back. Now that we're done, we go back up. That is step 2. We're now on to step 3 to add a test project. So let me go back in here. We're going to close this. Let me re-zoom back out. We're going to close this tab. So again, you can hit the middle mouse wheel, Control F4, or hit the X. Any of those will work. We're done with the console app. To add a test project, we're going to go to our solution. We're going to right click on it to get the context menu. And down about halfway, a little more than halfway is add, and we'll say new project. And here's where we're going to add our new test project. So again, solution, right click. The solution is the top node above console app. It says solution along with your name. Right click, that'll give you the context menu. Add new project. This opens up our new project window again. Let me switch back. We're now going down to our test project. So test project, we just did that first step. Now we're going to right click. So let's see. Oh, actually, I'm having you create a solution folder called test. That's probably a good thing to do. That's optional. But let me go ahead and do that because we call that out in the README. So what we're going to do instead is I'm going to right click on the solution. We're going to say add, and we're going to say new solution folder. So what we're going to do is put our tests in a solution folder so that they're isolated off from the rest of the code. That way it's an organization thing. It's not a functional thing. It's just how we're going to organize. So we'll create a new solution folder. We're going to call it tests. So that now creates a folder. Now this is a virtual folder. If I look at, I'm going to go into Windows Explorer really fast. If I look here, you'll notice console app exists, solution exists, but tests as a folder does not exist. This is a virtual folder. It's not a physical folder. So keep that in mind. In Visual Studio, this is not directly tied to the files. Now that we're here, we're going to put our test project under tests. So we're going to right click on the virtual folder, add new project, just like we were doing before, but we're adding it to the folder instead of directly to the solution in line. All right, now that we've got that up, oops, sorry about that. Let me get back to where we were. Okay, so now we're going to either choose MSTest, NUnit, or XUnit. Any one of those are fine. It's totally up to you on which one you want to do. I recommend trying all 3 of them out and then finding the one that is your favorite. MSTest is probably the most popular, but XUnit is probably the most favored and loved one of the 3. It does not matter. They all effectively do the same thing. They just do them slightly differently. So there's no functional difference. There is going to be difference in terms of the code that you write, so it doesn't really matter here. For this video, I'm just going to choose MSTest only because it's probably the most common one that people pick. So I do have MSTest already selected, but if you don't, you can just type test or MSTest. If I type test, you'll see here's my MSTest test project. Here's NUnit. Here's XUnit. So they all get listed out here on the right. I want the MSTest test project for C#. So again, make sure it's the C# version of that, and then we'll hit next. For project name, we're going to choose acceptance test. I'm just going to copy and paste this in. So project name, acceptance test. We're going to leave the location alone. It's going to put it where it's going to put it, and I'm going to leave it there. That's fine. On the next screen, we need to choose the latest version of the framework. So there's our project name next. Latest version, mine is already selected to .NET 10. Make sure yours is whatever version you picked for the console app. We're going to leave everything else the same. Once that's done, we'll hit create. We're going to do the similar thing to what we did before. We need to change the project properties again. So we're going to go back to Visual Studio. I'm going to double click on acceptance test, and it's going to open up the project properties for me. I'm going to close test1 CS. We're not going to need that for right now, so I'll just use the middle mouse wheel to close that. Control A to select everything, Control K, Control F. Again, I like it formatted that way. If it doesn't do anything on your machine, that's okay. First thing, disable nullable. Second thing, we need to add the root namespace in the assembly name. So I'm going to go and just add these values. And let me zoom in so you can see what we're typing. So we've got these, they're empty. We need to add these values in. Now I'm going to open up the console app because we're basically going to use some of what we did before. So let me open up the console app as well. Now here's my acceptance test and my console app. These are going to look very, very similar. So going back to the instructions, the assembly name is going to be company name and product namespace. So remember those first two. We're going to copy those over. And then we're going to end with acceptance test. The root namespace is just going to be company and product or problem space. So we're going to grab those, copy them, and then change these in. So let me go to a console app. I'm going to copy Lucentary.minus prime numbers. Again, yours may be slightly different. It doesn't matter, but we're going to get the first two nodes of the root namespace. I'm going to copy them in my clipboard, Control-C. Go back here. The root namespace is going to be just that. So just paste it right on in between those tags. The assembly name is that dot acceptance tests. That's it. That's all we're doing here. So again, what you want these to match, the root namespace should be the same without console app, and then the assembly name should be the same with dot acceptance tests. That takes care of this. I'm going to go ahead and close these, and we're now on to the next step. Let's head back up to the top. So step 4, we want to, not just optionally, I'm gonna really encourage you to do this. We're gonna add a primary class library project. This is the project where the prime number functionality is going to exist. This is our use case project. So we're gonna scroll down, here's our class library. So we're gonna right click on the solution and add a new project. We're gonna choose class library as the project type. For the name, we're gonna choose a short name. We're gonna make sure it's the latest version, and then we change the properties. So we're doing a lot of the same things again. So let's head back in. I'm gonna right click on the solution, add, and new project. So I'm not adding it to tests because it's not a test project. This is a real project. This is a core project. So I'm going to add it directly to the solution. So right click on the solution, add new project. Here, again, I want class library on the left. If it's not there, you can just type class library and it'll show up. If you just type class, it'll probably show up as well. Yep, and so there it is, class library. So we want the class library, make sure it's the C# version, hit next. This is going to be the project name. So this is the main domain that we're dealing with. I've been using prime numbers, so I'm just going to call it prime numbers. So I had lucentary.prime numbers. Again, if you use a different word, you could do the same thing. I could just paste that in. It's still on my clipboard. It's just the last part of that, right? So lucentary.prime numbers, I'm just going to use prime numbers. That way everything's aligned. I think that makes a lot of sense. So I'll do prime numbers. We're going to leave the location the same. We'll hit next. Make sure the version is the latest version, .NET 10. Now it's created our file for us. I'm going to go and close class 1. We'll come back to that as a part of another video. And we need to change the project properties again. So double click on prime numbers. This is our class library. Control A to select, Control K, Control F. I'm going to disable nullable. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit. And we want the root namespace and the assembly name. If you get to a point where you're here and you don't see it and you want the information to pop back up, Control J will pull up your IntelliSense. And now if you start typing again, it'll start filtering down. So if you lose that for whatever reason, Control J, jump, I guess, I don't know. But Control J will open up the IntelliSense for you, and then you can have your list again. So we'll do assembly name. We've got our two values. We're once again going to copy from console app. So I'm going to copy these first two values from the console app project. Lucentary.prime numbers for me. Again, yours could be slightly different. I'm going to paste that in. The root namespace and the assembly name are both going to be that. We're not appending anything on the end of either of those. Save that off. We'll close prime numbers and console app. We're almost done. That will take us through step 4. Finally, step 5, we need to add project references. So the projects need to know about each other, and there's a certain format or structure they need to know. And what that is the prime numbers project is the main functionality. The console app and the test project both need to know about prime numbers. So we're from console app and from acceptance tests, we're going to add references, dependencies to prime numbers. We do that. We did create a class library, so we're going to add a project reference from the primary project, that ours is console app. Then we're going to add one from the test project. And if we didn't do that, we do something else, but we're going to do these first two. So that's all we're going to do. To add references, let's start with the console app. We're going to go find this dependencies node under console app. There's 3 dependencies node, one for each project. Each project has dependencies. Right click on dependencies, and we're going to say add a project reference. There's different kinds of references you can add. This one's a project reference because it's a project inside our solution. So we're just going to add a reference to one of the projects. So we'll add project reference. That pulls up this dialog. We just want to check the box next to prime numbers. We want to depend on prime numbers. We'll say okay. That'll add the dependency. We're going to do the same thing on acceptance tests. So under your test project, right click on dependencies, add project reference, click the checkbox next to prime numbers, say okay. That concludes everything. To make sure it's all working, Control-Shift-S will save all. That's a good thing to do at this point because you may have files that have some changes. So Control-Shift-S. You can also save file, save all. Same thing, Control-Shift-S and file, save all. Then we want to build the solution. You can either do Control-Shift-B or build solution. It's also F6 on most computers. So we're going to build the solution. We just want to make sure that everything comes up, that we don't get any errors. Let me move my face. So build succeeded. We have 3 succeeded. So everything's looking good there. And then finally, one last smoke test. We can run the test. So just single click the double play button up there, and you should get a pass. At this point, everything is done. So to review, we've gone through these 5 steps. We created a new project. We did the primary, we did the test, we did the library, we added project references. In the context of the overall README, this is steps 1 and 2. We created a shell app and we created a test project or folder. Everything is up and running. This will conclude this first part. I'm then going to take this code and we're going to move into the second part in a new video. I hope this was helpful.